Welcome, everyone. This is Drake Behrakis bringing you again with the National Hellenic Society Excellence Series. And today we're focusing on another young professional, actually up here in our backyard in Boston, Massachusetts, Demetri Tsolakis, who's a startup entrepreneur in the restaurant field. And we'll find out about Demetri's life, what led him to obviously getting into the culinary business, the culinary world. Of course, anyone of Greek descent knows how important food is in our diets and so forth. But we'll learn much about Demetri's background, his upbringing, as well as his businesses and kind of future goals as well. So, Demetri, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So let's start right at the beginning. Correct me if I'm wrong, first generation Greek American, born in Connecticut. Tell us a little bit what that was like, your upbringing, growing up, and so forth, and then of course what really got you going, getting into the culinary world, because I know you started off on a different track initially, but obviously.
But I love the story. I love telling the story, actually. So yeah, I was born and raised in Connecticut, but only up until 9 years old. So not the fondest memories, and also not the best memories of that time. We had to move to Springfield, Massachusetts after, but I wouldn't regret that move and what happened to us and my family. But being in Springfield and actually working at my family's restaurant rooted in me and my blood that, this is what I want to do, and actually made me the person I am today. I think by going over some hardships as a family and the bond and, the Greek, family and how that's structured and how close we are, it kind of made me into the person I am today. And it kind of instilled in me these practices that I showcase in my restaurants with my team, my staff, who all have become like family to me. So I wouldn't change that part of my life at all. So when I was in Springfield at 9 years old, I went to school there, and I just remember, as soon as school was done, the strict Greek parents back in the day, we weren't allowed to go out and play with the strangers or, in the streets, because they were scared always, something bad was going to happen. So I would end up after school going to my family's restaurants, and doing my homework in the first booth. So I pretty much grew up in a Greek restaurant in the States, in Springfield, that my family owned 3 locations at that time. And that was all the way up until high school. I didn't have sleepovers. I don't think I ever went to the movies, maybe, without a friend until I was in high school. It was just that strong, strict Greek family back in the day. But I don't have anything against my mother for doing that. I kind of thank her because it kind of made me who I am today. But I grew up in the restaurant business. All through high school, even in high school, I went to a prep school in Western Mass in Wilbraham Munson Academy. And from there, we were forced to do an activity after school, sports or anything. And I played sports. I did, some other activities. But as soon as that was done around 5 o'clock, I still went to the family restaurant. So I grew up in that environment. I saw the entrepreneurship mindset from a very, very young age. And it's just the bond and the family structure from a young age. And from there, I knew that I wanted to do that once again. But being that, good little Greek boy, I did my Greek school. I graduated in 2 years because we only spoke Greek in the house. So my Greek was fluent, far more advanced. I finished that. And at that time, I just loved everything about our culture, our family vacations to Greece. My family comes from Aigio, a very small town in northern Peloponnese region, near Patras. So those family vacations, seeing our culture and seeing how we were different, is what I always liked as well. And I just knew that I wanted to do something with our culture. But when I left Springfield to go to college, I went to Suffolk University in 2001. It was a really weird time in the world with 9/11 happening. So things were a little weird at the time. I went to school. I graduated, in 4 years, and I studied international business and marketing. And I didn't go into the restaurant business right away. What I did, though, is I became an investment banker. And I did that because I wanted to get the college degree. I'm the middle son. My mom has 3. There's 3 of us. And I wanted to get the diploma just to show the accomplishment. It's something our family's never did or had the opportunity to do growing up,
Right.
for the life they left to better their lives and ultimately to better our lives. And I kind of saw all the sacrifices my mom as a single parent did raising us. And I always knew I wanted to give back to my mom and would do whatever I could to make that happen sooner than later. And I did. And then we'll get more into that story after. But I did the investment banking. I was really good at it. I excelled. The clients loved me, but it just wasn't me. It had nothing to do with my culture, had nothing to do with my upbringing. I was working for someone else. I was part of a team. I enjoyed it, but it's just, I couldn't see myself working 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. I like to, travel. I like to do things on my own schedule. I like to, interact more with people. And, just having the upbringing in the restaurant business, kind of my Big Fat Greek Wedding story, where, the main character is in a Greek restaurant. It was always a part of me. Like I would still leave college on the weekends sometimes to go back to Springfield, an hour and 15 minutes away, just to go work. I was still advising. But honestly, going to school, I graduated, I did investment banking, and I wanted to go back in the restaurant business. So while I was an investment banker, I actually was serving at Legal Seafoods, a Boston, empire at that time. And they wanted me to go into the management, field, just as an undergraduate at that time. This was before I graduated. And I just looked at it like, it's still not me. Okay, fresh seafood, Greece has great fresh seafood, but it's not our culture. And it's still corporate, and the way they train, the way, the rules and policies and procedures were in place, it just wasn't me. So I haven't found myself yet on what I want to do. So when I graduated, I had a couple opportunities to work in some Boston restaurants. And at 23 years old, I became, at the time, the youngest GM in the city. And I took over a concept in Boston's downtown that was known for food and for nightlife. It was called Mantra. And it was an Indian concept. And from there, kind of being left on my own to kind of rebrand something, and really was my first project, and seeing what I accomplished in the 2 years I was there, from bringing back the restaurant to life, and, the staff and mentoring and, creating these bonds and relationships. I knew I wanted to be in the restaurant field for the rest of my life. And fast forward to now, and six restaurant locations later and more on the way, I wouldn't change it for the world. Everything I've learned through college, I applied, but more is the upbringing of my family, my community, the Greek school, the Greek church, and everything that, the trips to Greece provided me with, and just basically showcasing our culture, because that's who I am from a very young age. I'm Greek, and it's something I wanted to hide ever. And I think as more and more, businesses, especially in Boston at that time, veered away from doing the niche restaurants and the ethnic restaurants. They weren't really that popular back then. I wanted to revive it. And that's where I got into my first, concept, being part of opening committee in Boston's Seaport. And when we opened that, it was kind of, wow, what is this? It's not a Greek name. It's not blue and white. It's not Aphrodite's Palace or Poseidon's or whatever those blue and white Greek restaurants that Greek Americans were opening was. And my first approach, I didn't want to open that type of restaurant because that's where I grew up. And at that time, being nearly 30 years old, and having traveled the world more and having been to Greece much more times, and just eating all over the world, and I'm like, you know what? I don't need to capture my Big Fat Greek Wedding to say, hey, we're Greek. What I need to capture is how us Greeks, live, how we laugh, how we socially enjoy food and drink,
right?
And how how it's a special occasion when we go out to eat. It's a family affair. If it's with friends or to whoever, it's a social part of our life where we're not just sitting there and eating one plate, cutting with a fork and knife. We use our hands. We're loud, or we cry, we laugh. It's such a scene when we eat. And I wanted to capture that. And going into Boston's Seaport area at that time, it was a third restaurant, so it was a big risk. but I also wanted to do something that captures that feeling, and also a little of a cocktail scene, with a bar scene, and introduce the Greek spirits at that time, ouzo, tsipuro, mastika, but while having the energy be from the bar and making the food the meze style, where we just share everything. Food hits the table when it's ready. You pass it. You share. You grab bread and you all dip from the same bowl or whatever it is, and just really capture that in large groups. And committee was a success since it opened in 2015. But 2 years into it, I kind of got where I wanted to go back to my roots, go back to my upbringing, go back to how I started in the restaurant business at 9 years old, pouring sodas when I could reach the counter. That was my first duty when I did my family's restaurant, is I was pouring sodas for the guests, but talking to all of them. And I just loved the interaction that I had with people. And I wanted to go back more to that. So in 2017, did the first location of Greco, which is now 4 locations in Boston and counting, with plans on that growth. And that was the first actual location where I'm like, we're going to grow, and I just can't do it alone. And I wanted to bring in, people to work with me as partners, and, enlisted a team with me to mentor, to, engage with, to, make group decisions, to involve in, so we can all have this common goal of what we wanted to do. And I found, my partners in that sense. And we built this amazing team, and from there, just only growing. We did the second location of Greco, which opened in the seaport of Boston in 2018. And then while that was going on, we were starting to plan the third and fourth location. But then the pandemic happened and that stalled it. But we got the locations. 2020, we opened our downtown location, and 2021 at the downtown location, and our fourth location at the TD Garden, where the Celtics and Bruins played. But while that was going on, the Greco expansion, and the growing with the team, everything was great, and capturing our roots. We were launching gyros and lucumades to Boston, who hasn't seen that in years. I still wanted to do more. I'm like, okay, in Greece, you have the gyradika, where you can go and get your gyro. You have your ouzeris, we can go get your meze, your small plates, and your ouzo to drink. You have your bars and that. So I'm like, you know what? But we're all known to pretty much eat moussaka, pasticcio, kokinisto, stifado, all those lovely foods we eat at the tavernas in Greece, that Greece isn't only Athens, and I've been through all of the country. I've been to most of the islands, and everywhere is so different in what they have to offer. I wanted to do more of a regional Greek approach, and kind of find dishes from Corfu, Koufonisia, Ikaria, Northern Greece, the Peloponnese, Kalamata, and wherever different regions of Greece were. And at that time, I was really enjoying Greek wine. And then we came up with the idea to do the restaurant Krasi in 2020, and launched that a month before we were mandated to shut down. So we opened up with the idea, we're going to offer regional meze, with a strong all Greek wine program. And to this day, we're the largest all Greek wine list in the nation. And that took some time to build up, but we got there, and we offer a regional Greek approach to our cuisine. And it was another area to showcase my culture, continue to build the team and offer more people, the partnership and, into the family. And Krasi has just been a success, knock on wood, or since its opening day, and, still going strong. And from there, after having, 6 restaurants operating and, plans for the future, it's just been a growth of chefs, a growth of partners, staff, who's been with us since day one, and really just, teaching them now our culture and the culture I grew up in and everything I grew up in, mentoring, and I kind of like a liaison to them, and that's me being able to guide them through and making them fall in love with the culture. We have a chef at Krasi who's half Jamaican, half Italian, who came on a research trip to Greece, and is basically the biggest non-Greek I know. Our wine director we found in Houston, who has done tons for the Greek wine community from Greece. He's also the biggest non-Greek I've met, who knows more about wine than me or anyone I've talked about Greek wine, and has met the distributors and been to the wineries, and he's so well respected in that. But these people are falling in love with our culture. So I'm like, if they're just falling in love with the culture one-on-one, imagine the mass group that we can meet or attract through these restaurants. In the future, we're looking to do other concepts, in different areas, of the city and beyond, where people can, really be exposed to our culture and not just what they might think is our culture from My Big Fat Greek Wedding or from their honeymoon in 1984 in Santorini, because Greece has evolved, and there's a lot of great, technology from Greece, artists from Greece, wineries, distributors, vendors. There's so much Greece has to offer the world, rather than just the blue sandy beaches and the islands. So every concept, I open with the team is more to showcase a different part of Greece and the culture and my upbringing, and my staff's love for the culture, as well as they learned it through my eyes. I take all our management, we go on research trips to Greece all the time, and they see how I fell in love with the culture. And I love seeing like a non-Greek fall in love with the culture and dedicating their career to it as well. And like I said, it's just I would never change the industry I'm in, not only because I love what I do and the creativity, but how I see it makes people feel. And food is I think the best icebreaker. You get someone a plate of food and you can really see how they enjoy everything. And communication starts from food. The best moments are shared usually over wine or some sad moments, but still those are part of life. So I think we have the tools in our restaurants to bring people together for memorable experiences, and I like that. So yeah, I love the restaurant business. I'm still going to continue doing it. I would never change it for anything. And honestly, it's not as hard as people think. If you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. And that's where at the point I'm in my life where I just want more and more, because I like seeing people grow. I like seeing, the opportunities I can give people, and it's just a great feeling. And I owe it all to my mom and our upbringing, and, wanting to always pay her back. So, she's obviously just not working. I don't have her in the kitchen anywhere. I bought her a house, actually. I bought her a house in Canton, Mass, to bring her from Springfield right when I was, I think, in 2007. So very years ago, to have her closer and, let her just relax the rest of her life while we take the time and work. Because seeing your mom work 3 jobs, family restaurant and beyond, to put you to the best schools, the best clothing, and see that upbringing, you really don't appreciate until you start seeing it for your own eyes. At that age, all we want is the newest toy, the Xbox and whatever we can get on. And, we don't realize we might be spoiled back then. So, I think that seeing that in my upbringing, and my mother made me more of a humble entrepreneur than some others, and where I like to give back and, work for my team. I'm just not going as an owner. You'll see me bust tables. You'll see me on the floor. You'll see me do whatever I need to do, because there's no hierarchy. I'm not better than anyone. And our culture doesn't say that either, in our religion and our upbringing. So I just always treat everything like a family in all the restaurants.
Well, you made a very, I think, a very important point that we, especially us as Greek Americans, but I think Greeks in general appreciate, is because of the richness of our culture and the deep breadth of not only, again, the arts, or the democracy that everyone talks about that we create. I mean, we created a lot of things, but the culinary aspect, the dining aspect, the wines, the social aspect, some of our biggest advocates and really leaders are non-Greeks, are either converts or Hellenic. So obviously what you're doing, obviously in a big part here in Boston, but in a major, really a part of the universe we're in, is you continue to bring that to the table to folks that want to try something different and want to explore, what makes the Greek dining experience such a unique experience. And you're doing that, and so you're making quite an impact on people, and seeing that. I guess one of the questions I would have is, for those of us that are obviously not in the restaurant business. We see how restaurants change over time, and sometimes themes change. Sometimes some restaurants fall out of favor. So, you've been in it now for quite some time. What are some of the challenges you see? How do you stay on top of the demographics? I mean, I know you're working with multiple concepts, which brings obviously multiple challenges for you as a business operator. But how do you stay fresh? How do you stay on top of what's modern and what people like so it doesn't get too stale?
Well, the good thing about Greek food, it's not a trend. Everybody says, oh, what's trending right now?
Yep.
But what's trending really is something that will come and go. And the good thing about Greek food, it's never going to go away. It's going to be there. So whatever you do in the Greek world and whatever you showcase, you just got to do it well. And my thing is, obviously the food, it has to be top notch, the quality, and a great ambiance that's refreshing, like the country. But we're also known for philoxenia, that's the art of turning a stranger into a friend. And that's always been instilled in me, that if I can take someone, invite them to my restaurant, now we're friends, that's weird. Because half the time you won't even talk to a stranger. And in the restaurants, what are we doing? We're talking to strangers. So we display this art of philoxenia in our restaurants, and it's been used so many in presidential inaugurations and speeches across the world. So if we stick to that and to our roots, we're not going to be a trendy restaurant that's going to only be there for 2 years. Challenges, yeah, it's always challenging. But when you have Greece as your backyard, and you think constantly about our culture, there's so much to showcase in our restaurants, whether it be the art on the walls, whether it be our service style with the Greek coffee trays, whether it be the traditional ways. This is so new to non-Greeks that when you build these restaurants, your consumers are non-Greek. Greeks will come in, they'll still be supportive, and also your biggest critics. But the non-Greeks who do come in appreciate it because it's something new to them. So challenges over the years are just always keeping things fresh in terms of seasonality. Boston, we have winter. We can't get the best tomatoes in January. So it's really hard when a person comes in and says, oh, you don't have the choriatiki salad. We're like, if we were in Greece, we would year round, but being in Boston, we can't really serve tomatoes right now because it's not the quality of a Greek tomato and we don't do it. But there are other versions or other salads that Greeks eat in the winter that we can showcase. So the biggest thing is the image that is perceived by non-Greeks, and even the Greeks who want to eat, they don't understand seasonality. If we're in warm weather year round, it would be a no-brainer, but we cannot serve, tomatoes when we're getting them from across the states in winter months. And it's just not, the taste isn't there, so in the fall, we did a salad of an autumn version of a dakos, and we used green tomatoes here because they're in season and they taste much better than the red tomatoes that you were getting, so that could always be a challenge here. And it's just educating people on the seasonality of ingredients. And we try to use the local stuff. And if people come in and they don't see like a moussaka or pasticcio on our menu, oh, this isn't a Greek restaurant. Well, why isn't it Greek? Because we're not serving something that you may have seen on my Big Fat Greek Wedding or on a Google site. But we have pastitsada, it's the pasticcio version from the island of Corfu that does it like deconstructed. We have uvetsi, we have some other dishes. Skoufikta is a traditional dish that they eat in Crete, and these are dishes they never heard of, so they don't know Greek food. And I'm shocked to this day what my chefs come up with and what I see, because I don't know half these dishes sometimes unless I've tried them in Greece. And it's probably the biggest challenge on that, but it's also the most the challenge I enjoy the most, because you're really introducing to something not. You can literally Google how to make moussaka these days. With the internet, nothing is unique. You can make probably the best moussaka, but now you can make a vegan version. You can do so many different versions of it. An idea of that committee was to take the classics and put a twist on it. So our moussaka over there, we make with artichoke. The gyro, idea of a gyro committee, we make with a bao bun. So it's like the Korean style bao as a gyro. The mandi that was known for as the dumpling of Greece, we have, different versions of it. We made a spanakopita grilled cheese. Our tzatziki right now at committee is taluturi. It's the Cypriot version. We've done a beet one, a carrot one. We've done a coconut one, a vegan one. We played around with doing a chocolate tzatziki. You can have fun with the classics, because I think the classics are what evolve. And when I was doing this at committee in 2015, and I went back to Greece, I saw so many more modern approaches to our cuisine. that I wanted, since that was trending in Greece, I'm like, you know what, let's do something different now. When we opened a Krasi, it was like, let's do the regional approach where areas are untouched. We have some of the best bread in the world and some of the bread that's unknown. You know, we have so many, over 20, 30, 40 varieties of bread. You know, I never knew Greeks used charoupi, carob in so much of their cooking in Crete. You know, so we're introducing all these ingredients, which at times could be challenging to also bring to the States. You know, there's much more restrictions here. You know, in Greece, your backyard, you can get anything you need. You can even, you know, pick your tomato for the salad you're going to cut. Here, it's tough, but we work with some amazing vendors, and they, you know, believe us. They see what we've done and what we're capable of doing. So they bring in the different types of cheese. You know, we're not only serving feta cheese in our cheese program at Krasi. You know, we have charcuterie now for the first time ever in America. We have some Greeks making charcuterie for us, which is banned. You know, you cannot bring it in or import it unless it's made locally. So we have a butcher who does that for us with the recipes and the techniques of Greece. It took some time, but, you know, finding sometimes also the ingredients you need. You know, for the longest time, we were smuggling in, I don't know who's going to see this, but we were smuggling in kritamo, the Greek herb from the island of Crete, because it wasn't FDA approved. You couldn't get it. You know, we got it fermented, so which got it approved, but we could not get ingredients in that we wanted to showcase, that we went to Greece and fell in love with. And we got so excited about them. It's just a delay. It kind of like, you know, you feel defeated sometimes, like, oh, I want to do this and I can't because of limitations. You're like, oh, why am I opening restaurants in Boston? You know, but it's a struggle. And, you know, when we finally get the product in, we just love to showcase it. But it's not as easy in that sense. You know, it's not easy, you know, trying to get the wine you had in Santorini, or getting the cheese you tried in Metzovo. You know, it's difficult at times, and no one sees that. But, you know, one of our things we pride ourselves on is getting these rare Greek ingredients and working with local, you know, vendors. And I think from what we've done and are doing, you know, Boston has become a little needle on the map of the Greek culinary world. You know, I'm getting articles in Greek magazines and covers, and the concepts are being mentioned. And, you know, there's a wine event, the Inorama, going on this weekend, and we were invited, and, you know, there's so much like hype. Oh my God, the team from Krasi is coming in, and this and that. And it's just, you know, we only do it because we love our culture. And, you know, I think sometimes we love it more than the Greeks in Greece sometimes. But just being able to showcase all that, it's rewarding for all of us, and it's the pride we have in our culture that allows us. At times difficult, like I said, with the limitations, but we make it work.
I mean, I knew you grew up in Western Massachusetts most of your life. You said a little bit of time in Connecticut, and obviously going to school. Was going to school in Boston kind of an experience in Boston, essentially your way of really getting a lay of the land in terms of seeing where the opportunities are? Because you had that thought in your mind about, you know, getting into the restaurant business or at some point on your own, right? And so, you know, was it that experience that made you consider Boston versus going elsewhere?
I loved Boston from when I came here in 2001, you know, and it was my first, I think, sleepover when I lived in the dorms of Suffolk. You know, we had strict parents, and I was free. And I saw a different approach to life. I kind of saw, you know, more of a nighttime vibe, where growing up, I didn't see, we were closing at 9 o'clock and I was making gyros. You know, I didn't see that. And I saw really more the social enjoyment of life. And only time I saw that is when I went to Greece. I'm like, how can I bring that Greek social enjoyment to the States? And I really just loved the city of Boston and how you could walk everywhere, and how clean it was, and the people and the universities that were here, and the hospitals and the leading companies. And, you know, I just got a really great feeling, and started building a network while I was in college and meeting other entrepreneurs. And, you know, through my school, you know, I remember taking one course where I had to make a business plan, and that stuck with me. And I still have that business plan to that day. And everybody was picking up, oh, they wanted to do this and they wanted to do that. And my business plan was, I want to open a restaurant. And I was the only one student out of 30 who had that business plan. So that kind of stuck with me. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make it happen. And you know, when I started making my own income and not, you know, my family's pay, which isn't the best when you're growing up, it's like a little stipend you get. But I started enjoying life and traveling and to non-Greece, and just seeing the world. And when I saw the world, I'm like, you know what? Our culture needs to be kind of showcased all over the world. I respect other cultures. I love other countries and the people, but I'm also a proud Greek, and I want to say that I'm also a proud Greek American, because I think we kind of, we get labeled, all non-Greeks, or that Greek Americans are kind of their own little community and society over here, and we just take the pride we have of Greece. And I know Greece is very proud of us and what we're doing, and showcasing the culture. I was that oddball in the group of friends. I had Easter a week or a month later. I had Greek school. But once I got to college, I kind of knew I had to get serious, and I did the investment banking to make my mom happy. The thing is, though, she never regretted me leaving that to go back in the restaurant business, because she knows it's what I wanted to do, and supported me. Always a scared Greek mom, of course, but to this day, I know she's happy and she sees it.
Great. That's great. You've mentioned your mom several times as one of the major influences and major persons in your life. Anybody outside of the family, I guess, that really, you consider mentors or people that helped you along the way, that were already kind of in the field, or saw what you're doing, and kind of had an opportunity to kind of pick their brain a little bit.
Yeah, it's just some old bosses of mine. They were actually Greek, and the jobs I had, and kind of seeing their entrepreneurship mentality. I was really into Greek music my whole life, and kind of, if you believe it or not, that's where I learned how to speak Greek. At a very young age, I was only listening to Greek music and putting words together. Before I went to Greek school, and my first words came from Greek music, and that kind of always made me love our culture, because I loved Greek music. And then the food, and seeing my mom's cooking, but seeing my mom's strength and determination is pretty much the attributes that made me who I am today. I didn't have to be a chef that inspired me. Didn't have to really be an old boss, or didn't have to be, a professor or a friend. It kind of just I was a single mom, and my brothers and the family bond, we're all in it together still. And I think, other than our culture and having, that exposure to a young age, is what really made me who I am today. The entrepreneurship just came, I think, on my own, through school and working at a young age, pouring sodas as my first job at the restaurant. I poured sodas, I cooked, I managed, I served, I did everything. And I worked, I even dishwashed, and I just learned that every position is respectful, and you're not better than anyone. And just that humble approach to life that I learned in the restaurant through my mom. It's kind of like I could have grew up to be a spoiled brat if I chose to, but I would never change anything that my upbringing.
One of the concepts we've seen develop over time, and it's not that we haven't, especially Greeks haven't done it. We're having shops or variety stores that are selling Greek products, Greek foods, and so forth. We have obviously a handful in the greater Boston area. Of course, cities like New York have a Titan, let's say, bigger supermarkets, so forth. My first experience, I guess, of seeing kind of like the super store, super restaurant was a decade ago, going to New York and going to Italy. And of course, there's obviously competition, but we know, Italian food and Italian culinary is obviously another, favorite of the world, being our next door neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And, we know about, it's very similar to our culture. Certain dishes and certain things, and what the Italians are known for, and of course what the Greeks are known for, and so that Italy concept was interesting, to kind of see everything under one roof. And I know they've expanded to Boston and other places. I know, I'm aware of at least one Greek company that's tried that in this country. But do you see that? I mean, because again, we one of the things obviously makes you wonder is, all the pieces are there, correct? And you've outlined a lot of them, right? We have the historical track record. We have the success of modern day of people, obviously the, Mediterranean Greek diet as being an important part of health and wellness. And as you said, we have a plethora of products, styles, and so forth that we can choose from. And so it's all a positive story. And we've got a lot of, we've got successful businesses all over this country that are doing well. But do you see, in terms of how the industry moves forward and evolves, do you ever see a Italy type, or is that just a pie in the sky and you could just do it just as good, having it's kind of locations rather than having everything under one roof, say?
Yeah, definitely. I think Italy has a great thing going for the Italian Mediterranean thing, but I think there's so much confusion when we throw around that word Mediterranean, where through our restaurants and our concepts, we try to break away from Mediterranean and strictly define ourselves as truly Greek, which is the definition of Greco. Because if you think of the Mediterranean region, where is it? It's Italy, it's Northern Africa, it's Israel, it's Lebanon, it's Southern Spain.
Right.
The Mediterranean region covers so much, where Greece deserves its own category, because we are so different. We are so unique. We grow, most of our products and organically in the country, where we don't have to be under the Mediterranean umbrella. The good thing about Greece is there's so much different avenues of doing cool little concepts. Your Iradiko, which we have, your wine bar, which we have, your modern ouzeri, which we have, the taverna, which we don't have yet. We just started a Greek market in our flagship location of Greco in the seaport called Agora by Greco, and it has some boutique brands of Greek products. But whatever we use in our restaurants is mostly Greek. So you're kind of almost like a mini Italy in your standalone restaurants. The thing is, to do a concept like Italy, it's going to take a lot of money, and we all know Boston isn't the easiest place to open restaurants with the rents and the cost of opening. Would it be successful? Yeah, I think we've seen it approached by Jose Andres in New York by doing the Spanish version of an Italy. But before that, we need to get the Greek market more well known rather than just pasticcio and moussaka and gyros. There's so much more. But I think if somebody had that idea and wanted to put all that effort in and really, take time to really broaden, the imports, because right now we still are very limited, to fill a whole Italy with Greek products. We just don't have it. And bring in Greek wine. For us, a wine revolution in the 80s of Greece, no one drank Greek wine in America because you couldn't read the label. Pronounced agorigitiko, no one could do it. And Greece back then was so behind on marketing that the wines did not sell because you did not know what you were drinking. But as Greece evolved, and I think the good thing, like the financial crisis that happened, the economic recession that happened, is what came out of it is Greeks knew they had good products and they needed to get them out of Greece. So they started exporting more. They marketed their wine. They translated them to English, and they said, "Oh, you like Sauvignon Blanc? You'll love Assyrtiko." So I think that approach has helped Greek products leave the borders of Greece and make them to other countries. You see, I just came back from Belgium on Tuesday and yesterday, and I saw so many Greeks and Greek products in Belgium. It felt so nice that I can see a part of our culture in another culture, because cultures spread. When you go to other countries, you'll see, a little Italy. You'll see, a Greek town, which also the Greek towns, for me, it's what's sad is I'm trying now actually to, get a little uprising. The Greeks, I think the upbringing is changed. The mentality has changed. Mom and dad who own Greek restaurants, they don't want that for their kids anymore. Back then it was a tougher business. So I think now is why you see in Chicago that the Greek town has kind of died a little, is because the kids don't want that business. They're going to school and they're getting 9-to-5 jobs, where I was the opposite. I didn't want the 9-to-5 job. I want to do this and I want to get more restaurants out there. So mentality has changed over the years, for good and for the worse. But at the moment, could someone do it in Italy? Yeah, they could do it in Italy. There's a lot of parts of Greece that we can showcase under one roof, but we're doing a good job right now showcasing them alone in a smaller city. It's kind of like you're making a little Greece in Boston, but there are so many more cities than just Boston. So I want other entrepreneurs and other people to have this mentality and really dominate, the ethnic scene with Greek food, whether it be, fast casual, fine dining, casual approaches, bakeries. We have great Greek bakeries in Greece. It's just, I think you need the people to have that mentality that they want to do this. And my story is, hopefully going to motivate people to kind of be like, you know what, I want to take the risk and I want to do it as well too, for whatever reasons. Because when we showcase our country, it's so nice. And, we're not doing it in Greece where everything is pretty much Greek. Boston might become a little mini Greece one day in the food scene. And I see other countries and other cities that have a nice little, Greek, some Greek choices. But you don't have to be in Italy. I just think, having the Greek markets there is nice too, because a lot of Greeks also like to cook at home. A lot of Greeks do cook, I have a great kitchen right behind me, and I do a lot of cooking myself because I like to, experiment and try different dishes and, not be limited to only going to Greek restaurants. When I eat out, I choose to eat non-Greek and I choose to eat things I can't make. That's why I tend to usually eat ethnic food. I love Persian, Indian, Ethiopian, Thai, because I cannot make those myself. I have no idea how to even do that. But I think as we get more and more Greek concepts that are not just tavernas, it's really going to open the eyes of a lot of entrepreneurs and because the Greek scene in America was only blue and white. It was only Aphrodite's Palace, Athena's, and whatever you want to call your restaurants. And, at this time, we're definitely progressing. And I think we're even influencing Greece to see this progression of how, restaurants in America are doing it. Because we're adapting to the culture, the dining scene here, which is much different than the dining scene in Greece. People do not go out to eat at 11 o'clock here. I have a huge seating at 5 o'clock. So it's done very differently here. But the fact that we're stepping away from blue and white Greek, for me, and moussaka and pasticcio, I have nothing against moussaka and pasticcio, but there's so much more to offer, and the fresh fish that you kind of see that approach been copied, where I think of be original, do your own things, don't copy, other concepts. You can do your own version of it. You can be inspired by it. But I think now there's a good mentality in the entrepreneurs and the Greek entrepreneurs, and not just in the food scene. I think a lot of Greeks are doing a lot of cool things, and I see a lot of Greek, when I get emails from random, even vendors or whatever trying to do things, I see a lot of Greeks taking initiative and doing a lot of their own business and having an entrepreneurial mindset, which I think also came out of the recession, the financial crisis in Greece, because they knew they had to do something where maybe not focused in Greece or what they can do. And, we're big on education. And I think, just having that mindset, it worked to our advantage. And, I think our culture is really being shown. And I'm only one person, but if we had a bunch of these, it would be great. And I do see it. And like I said, I travel a lot and I see it everywhere. I'm so happy for everyone. And I reach out to them on a personal level and I congratulate them. I support where I can, when I can, because that's a big thing as well, too, in this community, is we need to support each other and not be a critic. If you want to, you can always pull an owner or message and say you had something you didn't like or an experience, but out of bad vibes, no. We have to support each other, because in the end, it's our culture we're showcasing, and we're opening, the eyes of so many more non-Greeks into our little country in Europe.
Sure. Do you get a chance to see? I mean, we've been fortunate at least to have, at all stages, people. One of the attractions of having sometimes stars in the industry, let's say, or people that are more mainstream, that people can look up to as an example of somebody that has kind of made it full circle. Obviously people think of the Kat Koras, the Diane Kochilises, the Maria Loys. Do you see, again, with all the things that seem to be moving in the right direction for really bringing Greek food more mainstream, or obviously expanding it beyond just mainstream? Do you see, a lot of the culinary programs or the chefs that are coming out of these training programs, are they being exposed more to the stuff that you're doing, or is it still, again, an evolution that's kind of a work in progress?
No, I kind of see it from both sides. I know people still love making spanakopita. There's nothing wrong with making spanakopita, yeah. But I also see these young chefs, and I don't mean it, to offend anybody in the different age group, but these young chefs who are inspired to do a different approach.
Sure.
we now have vegan souvlakia and vegan gyros, which you would have never had, 20 years ago. And dietary restrictions are taking a change, allergens, eating healthier, already healthier than the Greek Mediterranean diet that's noted as one of the healthiest diets in the world. But I think the approach is there, and the want and the desire to do something different, because for many years we were all making spanakopita, pasticcio, and moussaka, where to really, really showcase your talent, you have to kind of think outside of the box. And that's why we did committee to make it a modern approach. And, not only just Greek chefs, I was inspired by Danny Myers, the founder of Shake Shack, just by reading his book, Setting the Table, because he really talked about hospitality and the enlightened hospitality and taking care of your guests and taking care of your staff. And I'm like, you know what? That's the Greek approach. We take care of the guests in our home. We take care of the, strangers, philoxenia I talked about. So a Greek doesn't have to inspire me. I get inspiration everywhere and throughout. But in turn, I want to be that person now who inspires and shows. And I know people have looked at my menus. I've known they've taken ideas, and the fact that I can even do that, it just helps spread, this new journey we're on in the Greek, culinary world, where you have people who are strictly old school, which is great. And they send the foundation for Greek food, and they talk about the health benefits and the different regions of Greece and what comes from there. But also I think it takes a chef, an inspiring chef, to do something different, take the typical spanakopita and change it up a little, make your kokinisto a vegetable version, or like we did with the making it into a bao version, a fusion almost, that, you see Greek tacos, you see Greek burritos, you see a guacamole now. I love to see the blending of cultures, or the Greek inspiration. And I love what the chefs are doing that. There's a lot of young talent, and Master Chef came out in Greece, and I followed that. And you're really seeing a new wave of chefs. Obviously the internet's changed the world. We're always adapting and evolving. To this day, I'm evolving. I'll be 40 in 2 years, and I'm just learning about TikTok and how important it is to my business. So we adapt. A lot of Greeks still are old school, so they don't have that approach, which is fine as well too. But we still look up to them for the foundation of our culinary, of Greece, the cuisine of Greece.
Personally, thank you, and on behalf of the National Hellenic Society, thank you for joining us today and telling your story and your journey. And of course, good luck in the future wherever it takes you. I'm sure it'll be successful. We've seen you. Those of us here in Boston have seen that success and how you brought Boston back to life. And we wish you again continued success in the future. And also, as you stated earlier, of course, continuing to train and bring new folks and people that are in the industry, expanding their knowledge of the Greek culinary diet and so forth, and training them and showcasing them around the world and or around the cities and everywhere they go. So you're doing multiple purposes and you're doing multiple things, which is great to see. So congratulations once again. Thanks for joining us.